In today's video, we're going to be talking about an artist that has been making the rounds on Twitter only for like 2 months. And already a lot of people are very suspicious about this person's artwork. So let's delve into it and investigate for ourselves. And again, please don't send hate to any parties involved. So this is the account in question, and they go by the handle furrymaker00, which a lot of people thought was pretty funny for the name. Also, my cat is going absolutely bonkers in the background. But yes, so this person has not posted very much artwork at all. In fact, if you go to the bottom of their page, this is their very first art piece, and they posted it June 29th. So they've only actually been posting on Instagram for 7 weeks. Now, like I've said many times, there are a lot of tells as to whether, okay, an account may be a little bit suspicious versus something where, maybe it's more believable. A couple of ones. One, if the person posts a lot of artwork very frequently. Two, if the account is very new, as in it was made after 2022, after 2023, when, Gen AI became really popular. But on top of that, they have no pre-existing socials, as in we can't trace their username back to another social media account because maybe they're an international artist who was posting on like Weibo or something, and then we just didn't see it because we are a Western audience. This account can't be traced back to anything else. Their Twitter account is very new. Their first post in there was like yesterday or something. So we also have that. And then one of them is the art style being similar to AI. Now, again, I want to add a whole bunch of disclaimers, right? Of course, there are real artists who work really fast, so therefore they're going to have a really high turnover rate for art pieces. And also, again, there's real artists who started drawing after Gen AI became a thing. So unfortunately, the timing for them, it's going to look a little more suspicious, but no fault of their own. Another one is the art style being similar to AI. Again, because Gen AI is trained off of real human artwork, there's going to be people's art who looks AI, and it's because they came before Gen AI. So all of these on their own, that's one thing. Now, one big one is they don't post any speed paints or work in progresses, but this person actually does. So let's take a look at some. So here is what their speed paints look like. So what is interesting about their speed paints is they don't show you how they sketch. So when they start their speed paint, they already start with the sketch drawn in. I'm not saying you can't do that. Artists are allowed to post whatever they want, including no speed paints if they don't want to post any. But it starts getting a little bit suspicious if you start checking a whole bunch of other markers for AI-esque artwork. Again, the high posting frequency, the account appearing, a month and a half ago, and then having an art style very similar to AI. And then now when people are looking at your speed paints, people are a little bit suspicious because of some things. One of them being the fact that we can't see how you sketch. So this is the final art piece for this one. One other thing that I found a little bit interesting with this speed paint, and again, I will add every artist draw differently. So this on its own, to me, is not suspicious. It's just, again, we're taking everything in context, is the fact that like they draw in the environmental lighting perfect. Like you see this, they basically fully render the boot in without the leg being drawn in at all. Then they go and draw the leg in. So again, like every artist can draw whichever way. There's some artists who like working on like piecemeal. They'll like fully render this and then go and render that. But you see how this artist works? This artist works piecemeal. They fully rendered the latex suit and then the boots, and then they went and rendered the legs and didn't render the face. I'm not saying you can't draw like that, okay? Don't put words in my mouth. But it's always a bit interesting when you see even artists who like rendering piecemeal, like chunk by chunk or whatever. If it would use the same color, typically they would render it all together. So the face and the legs would use the same or similar color palette. So I just find it interesting that they went and fully rendered the legs in, because we have legs, shading, highlights, rim light, and more highlight on the thighs, more rim light drawn on the inside of the leg. And the face is untouched. The face is still a flat color. I'm not saying you can't do that, but it's not the most common drawing process. So I get a little bit suspicious when I see that after I've already seen everything else that makes me scratch my head a little bit. Let's take a look at another drawing process, where as you can see here, once again, they start with the completed sketch. Not saying you're not allowed to do that, but if you are under AI suspicion and we don't see how you sketch at all, it's not going to disprove anything. One thing they do that I find a bit interesting is that they draw the background in first, which some artists do that, but it's not the most common. I'm not saying that if you draw the background first, that means you're using Gen AI, by the way. I just find it interesting because very rarely do I see people do that. So it's just like one interesting thing. So we see them fully render the background out, and then they apply one large like grayscale color to the character to block the shape out, and then they start rendering on top of that. It looks like they use the soft round brush for everything. Hey, it's a nice brush. And then this is their final product. And then here we have another one. I just find this a bit interesting because they draw like a neon sign and they write something on it. It's like they're trying to write Chinese, but it's not Chinese. It's just a bunch of characters. I just find that funny. And somebody says, what does the red sign on the left says? I'm gonna be honest, as somebody who can read Chinese, this ain't shit. Maybe it's like a different language, but Korean uses circles and Japanese use a lot of like kind of like loops in the characters, or they use a lot of Chinese characters as well. And I don't recognize any of these characters. I just found it funny. But this is just what I find interesting. Once again, to render the character, they put in the full grayscale color, and then they go and render the latex suit in first. Hey, I'm not saying you can't do that. I just find it interesting. That's all. But yeah, so they go and fully render the latex suit in, and then they render the face in, like the rest of the character. So we have the character being drawn in, and then we get to the hair. And this part of the hair rendering just has me like a little bit intrigued. And please, again, I'm not saying this to be like, you can't render like this at all. I'm just very intrigued in the sense that like, it feels like they don't really know how to render hair, if that makes sense. Like they blocked out the rough shape of the hair and then they're painting on top of it almost as if the hair is like a cape. Do you see what I mean? And then they just draw in like a bunch of strands at the bottom and they call it a day. Not saying you can't render hair like that at all. You definitely can. What just has me scratching my head a little bit is the fact that looking at the drawing process, it feels like there's a discrepancy between their like idea of how to render hair versus everything else. Because I would argue like rendering full latex is hard. Latex is really hard to draw. And they seem to know exactly how to render complicated clothing, complicated textures like latex. But then when it comes to rendering hair, they're kind of like, oh, I don't know. And so you don't see it very much in their comment section, but a fair amount of people were kind of speculating as to whether this person was using AI in their process, especially for one of their art pieces, the one of this character wearing a red bikini. And they posted a full-on video being like, a few people accuse me of using AI, but I am not. And their caption reads, this video is dedicated to the small number of people who claimed I use AI. I also want to thank those same people for promoting me. I hope you keep showing me love. Thanks to all my followers for the support. They show themselves sketching. I'm sorry, I'm not personally buying the sketch for a couple reasons, right? One, they're doing the whole, every brushstroke they're putting down, they already know where it goes. They already know where all the lines go, etc. Again, some artists can do that. Some artists can out the gate one shot, you know, when they do the sketch, it looks great, they keep going. Even professional artists though, would typically liquefy, redo, resize. They need to retry, like draw brushstroke, undo. We don't see this person doing any of that. But secondly, the biggest part of what I find odd is that they're doing such a confident sketch, and then midway through sketching, they start drawing balls and lines for the joints, which is typically the very first thing you do, right? Like, when the way most people sketch, if you want to use the ball and joint system, not everyone does, they'll typically draw that first. So they'll draw, I don't know, like a circle for the head, a square for the torso, and then circles for the shoulders, circles for the elbows, and then draw lines to connect everything. And then they build a rough sketch on top of that. I feel like I never see artists draw construction lines simultaneously while drawing a very finished sketch. Because like this to me is a quite finished sketch. There's no rough lines. The face shape is already drawn in perfectly. The eye shape is already drawn in perfectly. There's no like kind of rough cross hatching where you're like, oh, I might have to go over this and clean this part of the sketch up. This looks like a very clean sketch. So what's the point of the ball and joints? Again, maybe some people do it alongside their clean sketch, but for the most part, people draw it first. That's the part that I find odd. But yeah, you see this on the first go, they already get the pose completely correct. They didn't have to redo anything. We see them redoing the umbrella in the background a little bit. But that's the thing, like we didn't see them redo the character. But we know, and they work in Procreate, it records your redos and stuff. So they're redoing the umbrella in the corner. And then I can like replay it again, you know? Like you see how they immediately knew where the face went? They start drawing the arm, and again, they're gonna draw in a circle for the shoulder and like the ball joint system. I'm not saying you can't do that, but that alongside the fact that the sketch is perfect on the first go has me a bit sussed out, right? Like they got the sketch perfect. So here we see the full speed paint, because this, by the way, this is the only speed paint where we see the sketching process, as far as I found anyways. So they go and immediately flat color in the character's skin, and then they start rendering. So now we see a top-down camera POV of them drawing. Why don't we see them do the sketch with this POV? This is what I'm curious about as well. So we know they can do a top-down camera setup. Some people can't, right? They don't have the contraption or whatever, which, I mean, if you're creative, you can prop it up on a box of cereal or something. But once again, they start that after the sketch is already done. This doesn't disprove the fact that they could have a hidden layer in Procreate, traced that, and then toggled it off, like removed it, right? So that they can continue drawing like this. This proves to me that you know how to use Procreate. But I still am not fully convinced the sketch was done by hand. So now we see them drawing. And basically, I don't need to tell you more. It's going to be the full speed paints. We can see them applying the flat colors in. One thing that I find interesting as well, and this is just me, is that like this is a furry character. It looks like this, right? As you can see, there's like a color for the undertone of the belly, and then the color on the outer side of the skin is like a different shade, right? It's a much more saturated kind of orangey color. The way they painted in just the undertone inside, as if they're painting like a swimsuit on first, then the rest of the skin, I just find that a bit interesting. No shade at all if this is how you draw and you draw it legitimately without using AI. I am just not confident that this person is not using AI. And I have proof to back it up. So here's what a few commenters had to say. A user writes, let's see all the layers then. Anybody can show the sketch in time-lapse. Show the layers with the time-lapse. If you can't do that, then you've proven you traced over a hidden layer that probably holds the AI image you're clearly tracing over. Somebody else says, why not show the whole process from the above view? Why start after your sketch is done? Someone else says, can you also do a sketch speed paint? Like show us the full process exactly like this. Furry makers defending themselves in the comments. A user says, I like your work, but to be honest, that's not how a sketch works. It is AI, probably using Bonnie Fasco, who is another artist, as a reference. Furry Maker responds, with all due respect, I can tell that you know practically nothing about drawing. In response to somebody asking about seeing the full sketching process, they said that's understandable. Starting with the next post, I'll be sharing my drawings, uncut and unedited, exactly as I create them from scratch on a YouTube channel. In response to somebody asking for the layers, they respond, if you want the full Photoshop file, send me a message and I'll give it to you. You can do whatever you want with it. One other thing, if you take a look at this person's speed paint, before we get into more of the claims that people have made about this person, is if you slow the speed paint down, there are multiple instances in the speed paints where you can see they're painting and they have to re-log into their iPad. It happened once, twice, here in this chunk of the speed paint. And then it happens again further down the line. They logged in again. I just find that very weird. Because the reason you would have to do that on an Apple device is if you let the device sit there for too long and then it went to sleep, then maybe, okay, you have to like re-awake your iPad up. But if you're sitting there drawing this entire time and you know you plan on doing this because you're recording this video to disprove your AI usage, like, why are you logging in and out of your iPad so frequently? Like, it's going to sleep and you're waking it up again. I'm not saying you can't take a bathroom break, you know? But this bro is taking like 7 bathroom breaks in the period of 10 seconds on the speed paint. You're like waking it up, what, like every 2 minutes? Put a pin in that because we'll revisit that in a minute. So a user Pixie New makes this video writing call out on an AI artist furry maker. AI artists got their grubby hands into the furry art community, unfortunately. Thought I should bring it to everyone's attention so more people don't fall for it and get scammed. Oh, because this person offers commissions, by the way. They write, just because you trace over and copy over exactly what you've AI generated doesn't make it any less AI. That is not real art. Please stay vigilant, guys. There are signs. So they show their page, Furry Maker, and this was a few weeks ago. Take a look at that art piece. They're looking at the hands, the fingers, and how they look odd, how the nails don't match up, and how the sketches look traced. How the speed paints are only up close details and the rendering is inconsistent piece by piece. Allegedly, they took another person's original artwork and ran it through AI to make this piece that they traced over. And they're afraid this person is trying to get a VGen for commissions. And also the poster adds an update writing, update guys, they deleted the Sabrina art with the worst AI fingers, lol, if that's not proof to y'all. Another person who commissioned them writes, actually hate how I fell for it before the Beware was made. Commissioned them too and got really bad quality art. Had to have them fix stuff over and over again from the sketch phase to the rendering phase. So if you want some insight on what goes on in the commission, I can send it to you. And that is one thing these people who trace over AI generated work have. It's that they're unable to do commissions well because if you ask for something hyper-specific, they can't do it. They would need to go to AI to then generate a hyper-specific image, then paint over it. But then if there's something that you want changed, for instance, like a character's holding a sword and you want the hilt to look a little bit different, a real artist would be able to just make it different because they painted it so they can just like modify it. But somebody who's tracing over AI won't be able to do that because the tracing is making their skill appear a lot higher than it actually is. So when something requires custom modification, they won't be able to do it because their skill level just isn't there. And they'll try to go to AI and try to like regenerate something. Again, allegedly. And then it gets worse because a pretty damning piece of evidence was exposed. This is a video made by user Slightly Toasty, where they slowed down Furry Maker's speed paint, the one that I showed you in the red bikini. And if you scroll through the speed paint, something interesting gets revealed. There's one moment in time where they closed their painting canvas, so it showcased all of their working files in Procreate. And what did we see? Right here, an AI image. Right next to, you can see this one is the working canvas they're working on. More AI works. This is the AI photo, and this is their art. They're literally painting over Gen AI. What the hell? And yeah, it's there. If you open their video and you slow it down, right there is the AI image. And you can see it literally says it's in Spanish, right? But they're color selecting off of this canvas. You can see right here, they're selecting the color of the thigh. And they're immediately going to go back into their canvas and continue painting. So they are tracing over an AI image, but they just moved it to a different canvas. My theory as to why this person is constantly putting in their iPad passcode, I think it's because they're going and selecting on the other canvas, reopening their canvas, and that's either causing them to close their iPad or having to relog in, or they're doing it and splicing it out of the video in the speed paint so that we don't see them do that. Because again, speed paints can be edited, right? A final point that I find very interesting is, again, right here, if you slow the video down, you can see they open all of their layers and you can see how many layers they have. They don't have a layer 1. We have background and then it goes straight into layers 2, 3, 4, 5. The way Procreate works, every time you open a layer, it's automatically numbered incrementally. So the first layer you open will be named layer 1. That's like the default layer that opens in Procreate, okay? So in order to not have a layer 1, you have to delete it. Where did your first layer go? Did you delete it? Was it perhaps the AI image inserted as a private layer into your canvas that you traced over for the sketch? I just found that very interesting. Again, like, this is too funny. Bro was caught in his own lie, but it actually gets even worse. There's like one more layer to this somehow. There is this post made by artist Rat with a Big Nose, writing, "This callout was posted for public interest and to protect artists from copyright infringement and to raise awareness about the ongoing artwork theft, tracing, and commercial monetization by furry maker." So the callout post is citing this artist, highlighting that they stole and traced original art, admitted to using the original work as a reference, refused demands for public apology, claimed that legal action won't work against them, and continued to monetize stolen work with commissions. So here on the right is Rat with a Big Nose's original work, and on the left is Furry Maker's artwork. Let me remind you, it's deleted now, but in Pixie's screen recording of their page, we saw this art piece up. It was on their page, and they overlap substantially. And so Rat with a Big Nose DM'd them, where they accused Furry Maker of stealing their work, processing it through AI, and then tracing or posting it to their account. That they wanted a public apology, the post to be deleted, and there was the threat of a full public exposure and legal action if ignored. Whereas this person just repeatedly deleted comments and continuously tried to censor the truth. Again, we saw that speed paint where they're insisting they didn't use AI in their process, where most definitely they do, because they posted it themselves in their freaking speed paint. We saw them open this. And so this is what Furry Maker responded with. "Hey there, you're right. I recently got into the furry community and I create my illustrations using references from Pinterest. I use real life references to build my characters. I saw the illustration of yours on Pinterest," which also, I'm gonna lose my mind. There's so many M dashes here. And as an M dash lover, first off, I hate how AI has co-opted it, but literally nobody writes with this many M dashes in one paragraph. In fact, like, your English teacher would probably flag you just due to the absurdity of how frequently you're using it. Every other sentence has like M dashes in it. But I digress. They continue, "I had no idea it was yours. It was even labeled as fan art, but I see now that you actually drew it. I looked you up. That said, I'm sorry to tell you that there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Just as you use references to create your avatar, I use references too. In this case, yours, which I repeat, I honestly didn't know belonged to you. However, the character I created based on your pose is mine. I built it from scratch. No AI involved. If copying were the issue, friend, tons of artists would be getting sued, since everybody draws inspiration from others and uses references. I earned all the art I created. You have every right to do whatever you want. Flag me, do whatever, but it won't work because I didn't directly copy anything. I simply used the drawing as a reference, which is very different, and created my own work from scratch. I don't plan on spending ages arguing with you in this chat. I have so much to do, so this will be the only message you get from me. Regarding your demands, I'm sorry to say I won't be doing that. I wonder what legal issues you're talking about. You really need to do some research because you'll just be wasting time trying to do something to me that you can't actually pull off. You'd be better off focusing on improving your art and moving forward. You've got plenty of talent. Honestly, I never thought using that photo as a reference would lead to you coming here and spouting nonsense, especially since, as an artist, you know perfectly well that using references is normal. In fact, you do it a lot. I do the same thing, my friend. So what makes you think I'm gonna delete my account or do this and that? Who are you, the owner of Instagram? Anyway, I hope you're well and have a good night. Good luck." So, if I took your reference image from Pinterest, secondly, everything else is my original artwork. And third, none of that is your business. This person is so annoying. I'm sorry. Like, they're so condescending in the email and like passive aggressive for what? I have the right to use references. You can't say anything. It's one thing to reference an artwork, but in this case, this person, first off, did not reference. It looks borderline traced. But as you can see, the shape of the clouds, the literal coloring, the character looks super similar. They're wearing the exact same outfit. Everything lines up, the swoop of the tail. But third, what I personally suspect happened here, which is even worse, is I suspect they took this artwork, ran it through AI, and then traced it for this, because I don't think this person can draw on their own. Everything was so heavily traced. All of the other works that we've seen on their page. So what's to say that that didn't happen here? Because that is my suspicion at the end of the day, which is even worse than just heavily referencing somebody's artwork, which again, this goes beyond heavily referencing. This is very uncomfortable. And in general, in the art space, this level of referencing, and again I use it in quotes because I think they cross the line, it's heavily frowned upon in the art community because it looks like you're encroaching on somebody else's copyright. You essentially are, with how similar your work looks to theirs. It's not gonna fly. People have lost in court for less. So to know that you're in the wrong and essentially send a DM back being like, there's nothing you can do, so go fuck yourself, is actually crazy. A commenter says, quote, "It's my character," end quote, but looks like the literal definition of, you can copy my homework, but change some of the answers so the teacher doesn't know. Another person said, "I think this person is an AI artist and the AI response is very funny, but I think people need to realize that using legal tools as a way to pressure somebody to comply and giving them a set time to respond can actually get you in real trouble if the other person has a lawyer and they're malicious enough to twist your words against you." Another person says, "As somebody who has consulted with an IP lawyer, I can tell you with almost 100% certainty that they would in fact lose a lawsuit against them for this." And yeah, I mean, there's previous examples of cases where like photography and magazines and stuff, and like there were lawsuits in the realm of copyright infringement for art. And I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an attorney, but it looked in line of this and the theft lost. So this person has a very long alleged rap sheet of tracing over AI generated works to try to pass it off as their own, lying to their audience by posting a speed paint claiming they didn't use AI when there is literally a screenshot of the AI image they're tracing over in the speed paint itself that I imagine will probably be deleted very soon, and taking other people's works, allegedly feeding it through AI, and then tracing that to make a final product for commission, and allegedly being not a great experience to commission. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. And I think the reason this happens more and more is because generative AI is giving scammers another avenue to scam with. And it's so frustrating to see as like real artists are struggling to get traction online, and then people can just pop in and start tracing some stuff and be like, yeah, I'm gonna get a bunch of views for this. Sucks. So anyways, I'll have the affected parties linked down below if you would like to go follow them and check out their work, because the three artists that I showcase, Pixie, Toast, and Rat, make beautiful artwork and you definitely should go check them out. And just stay diligent, guys. If it looks too good to be true, it might not be true. But don't go accusing random artists, okay? Don't do that. Just keep it in here. If you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me on Etsy. I do digital art over there. Follow me on Instagram. We're trying to get to 100K. We're like 5.5K away now, so we're getting there. Yay! And I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST, or Thursdays at 7:30, where I do a podcast with my friend. So hope to catch you all there or in another video. Peace.